Hey there, folks. Welcome back to part 2 of my 3-part conversation with author and pipe collector Rick Newcombe. Many of you know Rick from his books In Search of Pipe Dreams and Still Searching for Pipe Dreams. Today, Rick and I sat down to talk about his more than 30 years experience collecting pipes and developing relationships with pipe makers all around the world. So, thank you for tuning in, and please enjoy our conversation. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Rick, about how your taste has evolved through the years. I know you write a lot about it, especially in the first book, about kind of what your history is, but could you remind some people what your background is with pipes? And then I want to get into a little bit more about how you found pipe makers who really taught you something new and how you refined your taste over the years.
Sure. I was in my mid-20s. I was a cigarette smoker. And I remember my father sent me a letter, a long handwritten letter. I was 27 years old. And he said, "Rick, I am so proud of you. You're doing everything right." I was a reporter for UPI at the time in Baltimore. He was in Chicago. He said, "You're doing everything right. I love Carol, my wife. We had just been married. Everything is so great about your life, except you smoke cigarettes. And I got to tell you, I'm working with a man who's at age 49, got lung cancer, just died. It is so sad, and the children." And he went on and on. He said, "I implore you, I've never asked you as an adult to do something for me, but I'm asking this time. I'm begging you, give up cigarettes."
Wow.
And it really hit me. I thought, wow, maybe I should. So I went down to Fader's Pipe Shop.
In Baltimore?
In Baltimore. One day at lunchtime, working away in the Baltimore News American building, working for United Press International. And I said, "Tell me about pipes. I'm thinking about giving up cigarettes." And the guy said, "Oh, it's so much healthier. We don't inhale. You just enjoy it." And he was very good. And I bought my first pipe. I think it was $5 or $15. It was a basket pipe, and it was fine. Then I went back 2 days later, and it was just so much fun looking around and trying different. It's so different from cigarettes. So at some point after that, I did give up cigarettes, and I stuck with the pipe. And so that was my story. And then what happened was, over the years, at some point, I don't know, I had been smoking a pipe from like age 27 until my early 40s. And I was talking with a friend, Ed Lehman, in Chicago, his oldest son and my youngest brother, there's a big age difference between my brother and me, and Ed's oldest son was my brother's age, and they were best friends. And my brother kept telling me, "Oh, Rick, you have to meet Mr. Lehman. He has such a great pipe collection. He loves pipes." So one Sunday morning, I called him up, and he said, "I'm so glad you called. I was going to call you. Ed keeps telling me I should call John's brother." So here we are. And Ed and I became friends, and we started talking about pipes, and we would talk probably once a week. And he kept telling me, "Come to pipe shows." So I went to Chicago. We met with Frank Burla at his house when he said he had this plan for an international pipe show in Chicago.
And this is back before it is what it is. It was just at a restaurant or something.
No, it was in his basement.
Oh, in his basement?
Yes, where this was so funny. Frank had 38,000 pipes. And I'm
sure he knew every one of them.
At one time. And then he told me, and I think it was written up in the Guinness Book of World Records. That's what Ed told me. I'd never checked it, but it was probably. So then I said, "Frank, Ed tells me, or I've heard you have 38,000 pipes." He said, "Oh, no, I've thinned down my collection." I said, "Really? Well, how many do you have?" 20,000. I said, "Oh, that's all, huh?" So he had them in these brand new green plastic trash cans.
Okay.
But trash is the wrong word, because they were very clean. And, and no sleeves, nothing, just
piles.
Thousands of pipes.
Wow.
So he would they were on wheels, and he would wheel them out. And I said, "How do we do this,
Right.
And so I think he kind of tilted them. I think Ed held a lid to the top, and Frank tilted them, and I put my knees. I was the one who, helped lower the thing to the floor. So now Frank Burla and Ed Lehman are talking about plans for this International Chicago Pipe Show. I'm pulling out these pipes, thousands of them, looking. And I remember a Teddy Knudsen. I remember a Tawny Nielsen.
In these piles?
In these piles, yes. Wow. All kinds of Dunhills, Camoys, Barlings, Cheritons, all these great pipes. And it was just such an experience. I think I bought about 6 of them from Frank. And in those days...
So he's down to 19,992.
Yeah, right. That's right. So that's how it was in those days. I mean, and you could buy, like if you found, like that Weber pipe might be $7 in those days. It was just a lot of fun. At some point, I was smoking a pipe. I had gone to a pipe show in Indiana called Indiana Briar Friars. And I bought a black sandblasted pipe with a bamboo shank. And it was a Sunday morning, had a big wide bowl of billiard.
This is maybe 1980s?
No,
early 90s?
This was early 90s.
Okay.
That's right. Oh, it might have been 89.
Okay.
89 or 90, yes. So I'm reading, the newspapers and having my coffee and smoking this pipe and not paying much. And all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, that pipe is really good. I haven't had to light it. What is this pipe?
Just from how you're smoking it, you could tell a difference
100%.
Between that
100%.
and what you'd been buying.
100%. And there was a circle around, and it said, an Ivarsson product. I'd not heard of this. So I called up Ed. Said, what is an Ivarsson product? He said, well, that's Sixten Ivarsson. He's in Denmark, and he's very expensive, and some people say he's the best in the world, but his pipes are really hard to find. And I said, well, if you spot any, because Ed was always looking at pipes. So I said, if you ever see any, let me know, And then, I don't know, at some point later he called and said, oh, I found the most beautiful Sixten Ivarsson pipe at Cellini's, which had closed. It was a Chicago pipe store. But they had this pipe, and it was a perfect straight grain Sixten, but they wanted like $1,200. And I, at that point, had only the most I'd ever spent.
In the late 80s, early 90s.
And the most I'd ever spent was a couple $100 for a pipe. And I felt then I was really stretching it. But Ed said, this is too beautiful a pipe to pass up, Rick, and the price is as low as they'll go, and I personally think it's good. So I said, you know what, Ed, if you say so, I'll do it. So I did it.
Okay.
And I sent them the $1,200.
That's a lot of trust to put in. I mean, you must really have had a strong relationship with Ed.
100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was totally close to Ed. I would have walked through fire for the guy. So then in 1995, Carol and I, my wife, went to Copenhagen, and she had relatives there.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, a lot of good pipe makers are in Copenhagen. I had just, on the way there, I was really into pipes at this point. And on the way there, we stopped in Cologne, Germany, on purpose.
Okay.
To visit Peter Heinrich's House of 10,000 Pipes.
Ah, the legendary shop.
And Peter was a great guy. We went upstairs. He brings out all these pipes. And I had brought some cash, because at this point I was starting to get used to the prices.
Right.
But really liking these, because that Sixten smoked like a dream. Both of them did. The second one, too. And I saw this name, Jess, with a beautifully shaped and beautiful straight grain. I said, who's Jess? What is this? He said, that's Jess Konowitz. I said, what's Jess Konowitz? And so when we got to Denmark, I looked in the yellow pages and saw Jess Chonowitz. That's how it's spelled, Jessschonowitsch, Chonowitz. So I called the number, and he's very funny with his Danish accent. You know him, so,
yes.
Hello, like that.
Yeah.
I said, hello, is this Jess? Yeah, especially then. He hadn't been to America.
Pretty thick accent.
So I told him where I was staying. He joked later, because we were staying at the d'Angleterre Hotel, which was very expensive in Copenhagen. I don't think I've stayed at it since, but I want to get back there because it's a really nice hotel. We were next door to the Danny Kaye Suite in Copenhagen. And he jokes later, he said, you told me you were at the d'Angleterre Hotel. I said, oh, this guy's got money. Let's have lunch. So he came in and we had lunch. Well, also, I asked him, I said, now I found Sixten Ivarsson in the yellow pages. I called, I spoke with his son, Lars, who told me that Lars and Sixten and Nana, his granddaughter, would be there in the workshop that afternoon, so to come by at 3 o'clock. So I said, that would be great, yes, if we could have, he told me it was pronounced yes, so if we could have lunch. So we set up the lunch. Then I saw the name S-Bang, and I thought this was a workshop. So I called the S-Bang workshop and made an appointment for 10 o'clock in the morning the next day. So all this was on one day. So I get a taxi from the hotel to the address I had for the S-Bang workshop. I walk in, and I loved it. I just loved it. It was only two guys. I was expecting a huge factory. You know, I didn't know what to expect. But it was just two, artisan pipe makers, Ulf Noltensmeyer and Per Hansen, and they're working away, and they were so friendly and so excited to have an American visiting them. It wasn't that common.
And it's so, like, what you're saying about going into a workshop with just two people, or meeting with Yes, or having encountered this Sixten, like, prior to that, I mean, a pipe was something that you probably thought of, like you said, came out of a big workshop or a factory.
Exactly.
So you're thinking it's anonymous, it's just a brand name, and it's just random people behind this who are skilled, but
yes,
and this was an entirely different world.
Yes. And I remember buying 3 pipes from them directly from the workshop, and I still have them.
Wow.
This was 1995, so it was a long time ago. I still smoke them. They were fantastic. So I went from there, I was all excited, and they had served coffee. It was pouring rain, and then the rain stopped, and I get back to the hotel and meet Yes for lunch at the hotel. And I think he had a briefcase with pipes, and I said, well, do you want to show me your pipes? And he said, well, can we go to your room? He didn't want to do it in the restaurant. Right. I said, okay. So we went to the room, and on the bed, he opened the briefcase. And I saw straight grains like I've never seen before. The grain looked painted on in beautiful shapes.
Because coming from Dunhills or
yes,
other factory pipes, like, to get a straight grain is just really, really rare. And they weren't contrast staining like to show the grain in the same way that Yes or Lars really kind of pioneered.
Also the shaping. Conovis's shaping was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just that little touch that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So I bought a full bent pipe, which I still have. I still smoke. It's fantastic. Price was considerably less than what they are today, new or used. But so I was very excited, and I loved it. And then I went over to W.O. Larson on the Walking Street, their big store, and they had Ole Larson, they have a tobacco museum downstairs. He gave me a tour of the museum. He was very nice until I said, all right, now I better leave because I have an appointment with Sixten Ivarsson right up the street at 3 o'clock.
The competition.
This was maybe 20 minutes away, 2:40 or something. I said, do you know how long it takes to walk there? And I remember he had this blank look, and he goes, who? I said, Sixten Ivarsson. He said, I never heard of the guy. I said, come on. Even I knew this was silly, but he sort of smiled. So, you'll get there. You'll make it. So I went there. I walked up. Now, at this point, Nana was much younger. I mean, she was, I don't know, maybe early 20s or something at that point. And Lars spoke English very well. He had never been to America, never been to England, I don't think, at that point. But he knew English. And I said, how did you learn English so well? He said, well, since I was 12, I've been negotiating for my father with customers. Okay. And I met Sixten. We talked with Lars translating. He was a very kind man. I remember telling him that I had called one pipe store that used to sell his pipes. And I said, do you have any Sixten Ivarsson pipes? And I said, the store said, oh, no, you can't get those. He's long dead. That's what they told me. And I said, okay. I didn't know. And I told that story to Sixten. Yeah. And he said, well, I need you to...
News of my death is greatly exaggerated.
He said, when you get back to America, you have to call them and say that I've met Sixten's ghost. Which I thought was pretty funny. And so then, on the flight on the way home, I wrote the whole story down because you get bored on these long flights.
Sure.
And in those days, well, and I'm pretty old-fashioned. In those days, I used a spiral notebook and a ballpoint pen, and I still do. And I wrote the stories, eventually those stories became my first book, In Search of Pipe Dreams. And then I've just, you know, the whole pipe shows and the number of great pipe makers. And then I've watched in America, like you, Jeff. I really think you're at the level they are. And I never thought, I mean, that took a long time before I would say that, but I really believe it.
Well, thank you.
I'm totally blown away watching you work.
And this concludes part 2 of our 3-part conversation. Please do check out the description below this video if you would like to link to Amazon to pick up Rick's books, In Search of Pipe Dreams, Still Searching for Pipe Dreams, and his newest release, The Magic of Lifting Weights. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, happy puffing.